This is iRacing.
Much like our previous California round at Sonoma, Willow Springs is a circuit where a lot of the drivers have real-world experience. Add that to the extra time on the clock tonight, and competition will be fierce to come away with a good result. It's time again for our endurance race as we get ready to watch round 10 of the Porsche Owners Club Series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Alex Goldschmidt. Behind the scenes is our director, Christian Duploy, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Our West Coast fans will no doubt be familiar with Willow Springs, but in case others haven't heard of it, let's head to our track guide. Welcome to Willow Springs International Raceway. As the oldest permanent road course in the U.S., it holds a particular place of distinction among American motorsports fans. The circuit is just an hour and a half north of Los Angeles, and because of this, it has been used in various films and TV shows over the years. With only 9 turns over 2.5 miles, or just over 4 kilometers, you'd think it's a pretty simple affair. But the incredible camber, numerous elevation changes, and some diabolically fast corners means there's complexities here to keep drivers busy for years. The downside is that there are a few heavy braking zones throughout the lap, and most are not in a straight line. Rabbits here and turn 9 each require the driver to carry tremendous speed and aim for frighteningly late apexes. Meanwhile, the run past the Budweiser balcony all the way through the Monroe Ridge takes you on a roller coaster of rises and drops, all while dipping left and right with wild changes in banking. Sadly, there are a few series that visit the track in present day, but it stays extremely active through club racing, driver coaching, and private test days. It has long been a favorite for both fans and drivers, and once you get onto the track, it'll be easy to see why. This place is a staple for any racer in the Golden State, Alex, so I'm sure there's a lot of pride on the line tonight for this track.
Yes, indeed. The oldest permanent road course in the United States of America. Based about 80 miles north of the City of Angels, Los Angeles, Rosamond, California, opened back in November of 1953. 9 turns in all, 2.5 miles, just a shade over 4 kilometers. But also, I still remember when action star Tom Cruise decided to get in a Red Bull Racing F1 car and still kept it pinned despite going off track. But yeah, it's going to be a true test for everyone in GTE and GT4. I mean, it's very tough to pass here. The biggest opportunities will be coming out of turn 9 down the start-finish stretch, heading into the left sweeper at turn 1 at Castrol Corner. You can make a lot of mistakes here. I mean, especially going through into 3, heading through into 4, 5, and 6, coming out of Monroe Ridge. You need a car that's got to be stable, and of course, there's going to be the different speeds between the two classes, which could be anywhere between a 15 to 20 mile an hour differential, and then of course a 10-second differential on lap time alone.
Certainly going to keep the driver's hands full throughout this 90-minute event. Before we get to that racing, though, we do want to mention our sponsors, which includes Porsche. There is no substitute. Find out more at Porsche.com. And Top Gun MG, helping financial advisors be the best of the best. Contact them today at TopGunMG.com. That's TopGunMG.com. As for today's event, we've been alluding to it. It's going to be a little bit longer than normal, 90 minutes in length for round 10. And as we heard mentioned by Alex, so we have our two classes racing. There is the GT1 class, which is your Porsche GTE cars, and GT2, which is the Porsche GT4 Caymans. They also have two spare cars waiting for them in pit lane. So if they run into trouble, they have something to sort of get them out of jail free card, if you will. So they can just pop in and take that. Although if you have to tow to pit lane, that will still cost you a lot of time. And you don't want to have to use it for an extra visit down to pit lane with our pit stops expected during this race. But it looks like qualifying getting very close to being done here, Alex. And I'm seeing Duncan on the provisional pole over in the GTE cars, while Del Toro with a gap of almost about 4/10 over to Hollander there in the GT4 cars.
Yeah, in GT1, Thomas Isabel in number 16 has just put it P3. About a 10th behind BJ Fulton. So, and then you look at Dylan Scott and Dustin Heindel, really close between them. Just over 2/10 covering second to fifth in the GTEs. And here we ride with the 82 of BJ Fulton, just listening to that wonderful 4-litre naturally aspirated flat six in the back end of that GT3R, just coming through the corners, looking very stable. Runs a little bit off track and then heads into pit road. Rob Russell trying to improve from fourth aborts his final lap in qualifying as we've got the last couple of moments. Adam Abrams fifth in GT4 at the moment in the 704 car, trying to improve at the moment and has gone quicker, well, has done a personal best in the opening sector. Doesn't do the same in sector 2, quite a big differential, about 4 seconds in the second sector. Just carried out his best through the middle point of the circuit was a 25.062. He's just done a 29.4, but yeah, it looks like he's going to bring that car into pit road as all the GT1 class cars have completed their run in qualifying. Rob Russell, Adam Abrams, Michael Tercy, John Momea and Jim Garimani are still out on track trying to put their best foot forward ahead of this 90-minute enduro race, where we were discussing before we went on air, Joe, that probably looking about 2 pit stops to be de rigueur for both classes here tonight.
Exactly. So definitely chances if you find yourself stuck behind another car, I'm sure, to try and get sneaky with the strategy, because as we were talking about, it's so tough to try and overtake without many hard braking zones into most of these corners. This is Michael Tercy, who I'm trying to see if he has already taken the checkered flag. Yes, he has. So I think that is everybody able to complete their laps done for the day, and our qualifying is officially over. You can see that clock ticking down. That's just letting them know that their available time to complete those hot laps has wrapped up. So why don't we go through our starting order for today's event? As like we mentioned, Jad Duncan managing to be quickest today, has himself on the top spot over BJ Fulton, who is going to be followed by Thomas Isabel. Haven't seen him yet this season, I don't believe. Good enough for third, though, so clearly some speed underneath him. Dylan Scott will start fourth today, as Dustin Heindel will be in P5. It's Mark Rondeau starting in sixth, then with Jeffrey Shulam on the inside of the next row in seventh, and Daniel Viverco in P8. Robert Leclerc will be ninth today, with our 10 GTE cars rounded out by James Baxter. What about down in our GT4 class there, Alex?
It's going to be Federico Del Toro who's going to start from pole position, nearly 4/10 quicker in that qualifying session ahead of Matt Hollander. Christopher Marciniak and Rob Russell will round out row 2 ahead of Adam Abrams and Michael Tercy, who were looking for improvements, didn't quite get them in their last efforts in qualifying. Larry Haza and John Mamea round out the penultimate row of the grid, with Jim Garimani bringing up the rear of the field entirely, Joe.
Curious how quickly they're going to catch that lap traffic here in this series. Because in the past, at some of these shorter tracks they've been racing on, they certainly seem to gain on them very fast. But as we said, a 10-second difference, and they're barely going over a minute in lap length around this place. There are so many fast corners that it just goes by so fast. So I have to imagine that the tail of the field is suddenly going to become a problem for the front of the GTEs, and just a handful of circuits around this place. And that's probably going to be too early to try and pit in as well, Alex. So there's no avoiding it.
Yeah, you've got to look at either the undercut or the overcut, and also when we get into the back market traffic, we were seeing the GT1 class cars pushing about 155 miles an hour. VMAX, the GT4s, we were looking at about 135. So the closing speeds are going to be quite significant, but also there is that unwritten rule. If you are the slower car, stick on the racing line, and it's down to the faster traffic to make their way safely through.
Indeed. And not everybody is always as experienced with that. As we said, we've got at least one driver I don't recognize in there, so hopefully he'll be relatively familiar with the dynamics out on circuit once we get going racing, which will be pretty soon, as they're already coming up through the sweeper. Long double apex right-hander that these GTE cars are going to be absolutely flying through. And it's onto the main straight. Already, the Porsche pace car is off into the lane, giving control over to Jad Duncan in the yellow and black machine on the front of your screen. He has to wait for the signal from the flag stand before he's allowed to accelerate. And there it is. Green flag is out. It's a decent start, but it's also a very good one for Fulton. 2 is outside. Not sure he's going to be able to do anything unless he sends it in deep into the first corner. Way too timid there for Jad Duncan. He loses first. He loses second. He falls all the way to third on the first corner.
Yeah, as Thomas Isabel and Mark Rondo go side by side. Meantime, Matt Hollander has taken the lead in the GT4s. He's got Rob Russell to the outside. Federico Del Toro's dropped to the 3rd spot in the GT4s at the moment. They are very close to kicking up a lot of the dust around here at the at what they call Big Willow here at Willow Springs Raceway, as Thomas Isabel has tumbled down in the well, from the GTE class. He's gone all the way down to nigh on stone dead last. Big moment there for the number 16.
Not sure what happened, but a big mistake early on is going to give him some real headache. Del Toro did manage to get back up in a second, but both of our leaders falling to 3rd place on the opening lap of the race. A very strange start to this endurance round. So BJ Fulton, on the first time back around to the start-finish line, will lead with Dylan Scott 2nd. Duncan is still in 3rd. And then we've got a gap here from 4th down to 5th. That's Viverco leading a train of cars.
Yeah, he's got Heindel, Schulem and Baxter. Schulem and Baxter nearly going side by side into Castrol Corner before they go into the right-hander here at Rabbits here. And then it's the run through the mixture of rights and lefts through into Budweiser Balcony before we get to Monroe Ridge at turn 6. But yeah, very, very quick to see. Michael Tercy has just had a moment in his own right, down in 16th. And, well, Thomas Isabel back pointing in the right direction. Mark Rondo has a slight moment, all side by side, and that was a brilliant move through into Monroe Ridge by Dustin Heindel, and he's got through on Viverco for 5th spot, so just lined it up nicely. We did say in the build-up to this race, while it's difficult to overtake, Dustin Heindel has proved otherwise, but here's what happened. Oh, Thomas Isabel, a little bit of a hip check, kept it out of the barriers. Lucky number 16 on that particular occasion.
Indeed. And the lightest of touches it looked like from that angle. So unlucky in that sense, but yeah, the fact that he kept it from having any sort of damage is definitely on his side. Meanwhile, speed is on the side of Duncan. Just seeing him setting the fastest lap of the race, though still in 3rd. He's already putting the pressure on to Dylan Scott, who is in the blue and white machine here in the middle of this trio. That was an impressive pass up here into Budweiser Balcony. Not a place you frequently see overtakes, so everybody else is going to have to take note of that one.
Yeah, it's pretty much at the top of the hill, at the top of the crest of the circuit, and then you've got this wonderful roller coaster sweeper going through into turn 5, then into 6 here at Monroe Ridge before they go into Wings Leg, and then through to the sweeper and then turn 9. It's a very flowing circuit. You can carry momentum, and it looks like at any point the GTEs might catch a little bit of air, as we nearly saw with Jeffrey Schulem, who's trying to close on the wonderful camel liveried Porsche of Daniel Viverko in the number 7T. This could be the look up the inside from Shulam. Dives to the inside. Oh, that was brave, but he got it done. He got it done. Great stuff.
Viverko bleeding positions in the first couple laps here. He's going to have to try and make that stop soon. Meanwhile, we got action for second place. Duncan is now ahead. Scott looking all out of sorts. I don't know if there was contact involved in that one, but they sure looked awful close.
Yeah, it was very, very close indeed. That livery on Dylan Scott's car reminds me of the Team Leopard WRT Volkswagen Golf touring car piloted by the likes of Rob Huff back in the late 2010s, and also I think Gordon Shedden amongst others. But yeah, just wonderful to see people like, Jad Duncan. I don't think he got the whole shot on the start. I mean, Fulton and Scott mugged him around the outside. We've got the replay here as Dylan Scott goes to defend. Duncan up the inside, through at turn 1 at Castrol Corner. That was very, very neat, actually. Probably a slight rubbing of paintwork, but not too much there, Joe.
Have to confess, I'm a little surprised. The racing we're seeing at the start of a 90-minute event, they're not acting like it's an endurance race right now. Everybody really hustling and getting their elbows out.
It's a bit like when you look at, say, the 24 Hours of Le Mans, the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Everyone goes, right, guys, remember, this is an endurance race. And they just go pedal to the metal from the word lights out. So it just goes to show that here, even at Big Willow, people are still willing to put it on the line. And Jad Duncan, yes, he might have got that slow start, got mugged around the outside of Castrol Corner on the opening tour, but he's definitely more than making up for it.
So where are they in terms of the lapped cars at this stage? That's the other question that I've had in all of this, as Fulton continues to lead. Duncan trying to play catch up after losing that top spot right in the first corner of the lap. And I think they're on the same straightaway as Garamani already. Yep. So yeah, they are going to be running up to the back of him pretty soon. Meanwhile, we're checking out Leclerc. He's got James Baxter in behind him. This is coming up into the sweeper. There's not really much in the way of breaking into here, so it needs to be very single file. And indeed, it looks like Baxter decides not to try and attack.
Yeah, I think if he was a little bit closer to Leclerc on that particular occasion, coming through the sweeper and then coming out of turn 9, got a cleaner exit, then it would have been an opportunity. But Dylan Scott is now, well, Jad Duncan has got the lead back from BJ Fulton. So the man who started on pole position got mugged at turn 1, now here on lap 6, is back in the race lead. But look at Mark Rondeau in the Hot Wheels livery, number 11. He is catching them hand over fist. Dustin Heindel is also improving, so 4 of the top 5, that does not include BJ Fulton, have done their personal best. Jad Duncan with a 1:10.994, fastest lap of the race so far.
And I said that traffic might play a part. Well, I went back and checked, and it was indeed what cost Fulton that lead position, just having his momentum blunted. Here it is right here, coming out of the sweeper, the second tighter apex. And you know what? I cannot fault Jim at all on that one. He did exactly what you said he needed to do. He stayed on the racing line.
And it gave Jad Duncan that big window of opportunity, threaded the eye of the needle in between. Just coming up to the number 6 of John Mamea, going into Castrol Corner at a big rate of speed. And looking at the speeds, 261.6 kilometers an hour from Dustin Heindel, 260.7 from Dylan Scott. And even with no assist from the front of him, Jad Duncan, top speed from him, 257 kilometers an hour, which is pretty quick, to be honest with you. That is 160 miles an hour. So we're seeing Heindel round about 162, 163 mph. And then you go to GT4's Matt Hollander, who is leading. Federico Del Toro is back into second position. And now we see within the first 9 minutes, and look at the run here, Dylan Scott got so close to the rear diffuser of BJ Fulton, had to back out of it. This is where the speed is going to increase. Scott keeping to the outside, lifts off the accelerator, tries to turn the car into the apex, then will put the power back down again, coming out of turn 9, and then it's the run down across the start-finish line here at the front stretch. and he's going to get a little bit of side draft from the car just to the right. That was so close. So close. I think that was Larry Haase in the 266 that they just gotten through on, who's currently running 6th in the GT4s. That's P16 all overall. But this battle at the front end of the field is really starting to get really close. And we're not even 9 minutes in, Joe. We've got a true flat-out enduro here at Big Willow. And it is
there's a caution.
Oh, we've got a caution.
Now,
right.
This is interesting. I need to double check on the rules here. In the past, the caution is usually only thrown on the first lap of the race when enough incidents are accrued. Now, this is well past the first lap of the race, so not sure what has brought this about, but this is going to back everybody up together. That onboard, I must say as well, Alex, really illustrated just the closing speeds that these GTE cars have on the GT4s. Traditionally, when the GTEs were still racing, these two classes didn't see each other on track.
No, it was like trying to find your little brother in a game of hide and seek, and you couldn't find him. You'd look you'd look in the cupboards, you look under the kitchen sink, you look in the pantry. You're like, where is he? Where is he? And here it's very different as Porsche 911 pace car picks up our overall leader, Chad Duncan, with BJ Fulton, Dylan Scott. This is going to give an opportunity, I think, to Mark Rondeau, Dustin Heindel, and Jeffrey Shulam. And there you see they are all being backed up by the pace car. Matt Hollander still leads in the GT4 side of things, ahead of pole sitter Federico Del Toro, Rob Russell, Adam Abrams, and Christopher Marciniak round out the top 5. Marciniak's lost 2 spots already, qualified P3 earlier on in the extended qualifying session of half an hour. But yeah, I mean, this is, when we get the pace car being scrambled and called out, all I can say is those famous words: pace cars breed pace cars, Joe.
It really does. It could often make it so much more chaotic. Everybody's going to be bunched up, and I mean, they're going to be intermingled. Look at this. I mean, it is GTE, GT4, GTE, GT4, just completely muddled up out there. So once they get to that restart, I suspect that the drivers are going to have to be on their tiptoes. And crucially, I think, okay, so it's not just Matt Hollander. I was going to say, I worried that maybe only Matt Hollander was left on the lead lap there of the GT4s, but it looks like he does have a few other drivers that had not been lapped yet. Del Toro, Russell, Abrams, Marciniak. What surprises me is Del Toro's been easily the class of the field so far this season. He's been hard to catch, and is usually a good distance ahead on one lap pace out there, tends to run away with it in the races themselves. Hollander's coming along, and even when it was green, Federico wasn't really making ground on him, so he's got a real challenge on his hands this time.
Well, I think it's always dependent on how you play the game, and especially when it's only 9 turns around here, a lot of flowing corners, you've got to be, on the edge, or as close to the edge in terms of the limit of adhesion. But when you consider, the GTEs are purpose-built race cars. The GT4s are more your production-based cars that have been converted to it. So the spring rate, the suspension rebound is going to be a lot more bouncier in the GT4 cars in comparison with the GTEs. So that's why, folks, we are seeing the GTEs being considerably, as Matt Hollander has just gone in to pit lane, so maybe doing a little bit of a cheeky strategy. This will give him, he won't lose too much time on this pit stop. And with the pace he's been showing, he could catch up to Marciniak, Abrams, Russell and Del Toro very quickly once we go back to green. But obviously now he's going to be in the pits for, what is that? It's now 20 seconds. Stationary in pit road.
I think he got a speeding penalty, it looks like, because I'm showing a black flag for him. So that makes it a little bit awkward. Yeah, I do think he might be able to catch up, but he's lost a lot of track position too, because he was leading, and now he's going to return in 5th. But maybe that's why he made that call, is because half the field is a lap down now. So he doesn't lose the entire field going in front of him.
No, but I mean, the good thing is with the pace car being out, which now has its lights off, so we will be going back to green very, very shortly. This will give Matt Hollander the opportunity to go that little bit quicker to a point. He's still got to watch his delta, but this will mean that he'll close on in. He's only about 10% behind Christopher Marciniak in terms of lap location here at Big Willow. So I think it's down to Del Toro, Russell, Abrams and Marciniak to just keep their eyes on a swivel, because once we go green, Matt Hollander could be at full throttle and then he's going to go for it.
And they also he'll also have his class there to race with. And yeah, I think he's just catching them now. So they have waived all the GT4s behind the GTEs. So that will help out tremendously right there. Those that got lapped, though, are finding themselves suddenly far behind, almost about to be lapped by their own class leader. So that's not going to make them all that happy in this one. They got shuffled backwards. They probably would have liked to have been waved around instead, but no such luck on this one. In the meantime, Jad Duncan has just one more corner to go before he's going to be released by this pace car and restart. Do you think he learned on his way into the first corner from the last time? Because he lost that lead critically, being just, I think, a little bit too slow into there, Alex.
Well, he's got to make sure that he catches BJ Fulton and Dylan Scott napping. Dylan Scott was already weaving to get some warmth into the carcass of the tyres underneath him, as the pace car's now going to pull into pit lane. Joe, over to you for the restart.
Here we go. He's got them stacked up and ready, but he's waiting for the green. Usually on restarts, you should be allowed to go whenever you choose to as the leader, but he's going to wait all the way until they call it, and that's causing a huge stack up behind him. Drivers going ultra defensive down to the very inside here into Castro Corner. Round the outside for second place. Fulton is under attack on both sides. That's Dylan Scott who's going to have the inside, and that's going to cause him to panic. He goes off course, and now he falls all the way to the back of the field.
Well, that just goes to show how quickly on a restart. That was a perfect textbook restart by Chad Duncan. He just kept them stacked up like bowling pins in the alley. Oh no, Viverco's off, and he's just been tagged from behind at the Budweiser balcony. And Robert Leclerc trying to get through. Jeffrey Schulam makes a mistake. BJ Fulton back up to 7th, and Daniel Viverco is off track. And he's towed it to the pits. So Viverco in the number 17 Cameron liveried GT3R is unfortunately down pit lane. Meantime, I did say watch out for Mark Rondeau. He is closing in on Dylan Scott. He's about 2.5 tenths behind. They come out of the final corner to complete lap number 11. Dylan Scott is waiting in the wings. Look at the slipstream he's got down the front stretch, and this could be an opportunity for the number 08 to throw a haymaker into Castrol Corner. Thinks better of it as they sweep into the right-hander here at turn 2 at Rabbit's Ear, but Rondeau is just waiting for those pieces to be picked up if required.
Yeah, impressive run from Rondeau. Even before we got that yellow, I had noticed he was closing in on that top group. So one less car to worry about for him now that he's on the podium, as Isabel is going side by side, using this caution to get back into the racing. Remember, he needed that to catch back up to the group, but he's going to lose out because BJ Fulton sneaks underneath at Budweiser balcony and demotes him. Yeah,
there's been a change. Rob Russell has now got nearly a 1.1 second advantage in the GT4 class lead. Ahead of Federico Del Toro. Adam Abrams now P3. Marciniak is about 1.4 seconds ahead of Matt Hollander. And, well, Daniel Viverco has had a bit of damage. Jeffrey Schulam. Oh! Crashes with Robert Leclerc, and that is spinning. Oh, that's going to go over and over. It's a big roll, and Jeffrey Schulam exits stage left.
Whew, there's a lot of runoff, but that car was not bleeding speed. It kept going, and away it went. It's an automatic tow to pit lane if you leave the boundaries of the track that way. So that's why you saw that car disappear. Leclerc is able to carry on after his brief off, and we come back to the battle for the top spots. Scott on the defensive as Marc Rondeau weaves left and right to try to find an opening.
This could really play into the hands of Dustin Heindl in the 117. He's just come through Budweiser balcony as they come down the hill once again. And then here's the battle for P2. Federico Del Toro being chased down by Adam Abrams in the number 704. Really close battle here in GT4s as well. You look at it's about 1.2 seconds. Let's have a little replay here. Ververko just goes exit stage left at turn 3, bumps over the curbing. He's going to get a touch, and that was from I think James Baxter. And look, the front end's an absolute mess. Cooling radiators exposed on the front of that Porsche. And well, he's now rejoined after 2 minutes. Jeffrey Shulam has now been in the pit lane. He's just emerged after 75 seconds. So 2 of our GTE drivers with a lot of work to do in the next 70 minutes.
Yeah, a lap down from the leaders in class now, both Ververko and Shulam. Yeah, the interesting thing about looking at Del Toro here is he lost the lead again on the restart. Russell got by for a second time and hasn't relinquished that top spot. Now they've still got Adam Abrams in that red machine there, the 704 in behind him, also giving watch. But Rob Russell, I mean, he's not looking a gift horse in the mouth. He's been taking these opportunities every time he gets the chance to get that lead away.
And sometimes you've got to pick your moments as well. It's not just about looking at the short term. You've got to look at the bigger game. But look at the squabble for 4th. Marciniak, Hollander, I think they've got, they've got Ververko right behind them as well, who is a lap down on everybody, including now pretty much on the cheat on these cars in front. But this is where trouble could arise. Dylan Scott, new fastest lap of the race, 1:10.940, is only half a second behind Jad Duncan, who has done a pretty good job on that restart, as it's Isabel versus Baxter. Isabel through for P6 at turn 1 at Castrol Corner, and loving that that's wonderful livery that was used in the latter days of the GTEs when they ran in the World Endurance Championship. It's just lovely to see that classic livery back once again on the grid.
Indeed. So we're going to get another look at what happened to Leclerc. Just hard, close racing in a fast corner, and the car goes across in front of him. He's at least able to get it woed up a little bit and try to steer it back onto course, but you could see that Shulam was on a one-way ticket to the netherworld there, unfortunately disappearing over the barrier. Meanwhile, Matt Hollander now trying to take 4th away from Christopher Marciniak. This is up into turn 4, just a little bit too far back to attack here, but Hollander giving up that track position is, oh, we got a car off. That's Russell, that's our leader. Rob Russell has gone off the circuit at turn 4, returned, trying to see if there's any sort of damage, Alex.
Not that I could see from this vantage point. Yeah, look at the front bumper. Just underneath the hood, there is a big indent. So there has been contact with something, whether it's the local scenery, as Matt Hollander in the draft of Christopher Marciniak. This is going to be very, very brave for the number 69. Loving the backwards banner he's got on there saying "pull over," and Marciniak is saying, "No, that's not what's going to happen." Then the front bumper's got "move over for freedom" on there as well. That's absolutely brilliant, that delivery from Matt Hollander. Down the start-finish stretch, Hollander sweeps to the outside. Does the old Nigel Mansell dummy. He's going to get the run here into Castrol Corner. Is he going to complete the move? Oh, bit of a hip check, but he still keeps the position. A little bit of Rubbings racing, and Christopher Marciniak has to relinquish that position.
That was great stuff from Hollander to take that one away. What about for the lead of the GTEs? It looks like Dylan Scott's got a huge run down the main straightaway. He goes around the outside of Castrol Corner, and he is going to take it back once again. Jad Duncan, with multiple mistakes, it feels like, so far in this race. He's had the speed, but the consistency doesn't seem to be there. Yeah,
well, as they say, Joe, to finish first you must finish, and if Dylan Scott takes a few more chances like he did just then going round the outside at Castrol Corner, but had a great run of speed. Mark Rondeau is still waiting in the wings. He's trying to keep it mistake-free in the number 11, the man out of California. So you could just see nice, clean steering inputs, shifting up to 4th gear, not bearing the throttle completely coming out of the corner, so that nice bit of progressive throttle modulation assisting the car to come out of the corner. Now you hear it chime through the revs at 6th gear, this naturally aspirated flat 6 4-litre boxer engine coming out of the final corner, and now this is where we see the closing rate of speed. Scott pulls the right hand side, Duncan does as well, so does Rondeau. 6th gear at about 150 miles an hour, down to 4th gear, lift off the throttle, let the engine do the work through the corner. Now into the right here at Rabbit's Ear, up another slight incline, and Scott a little bit wider through the corner just to carry that extra 2 or 3 miles an hour through it. And it's going to be the run up towards Budweiser Balcony. They've got some traffic just coming up ahead of them. Duncan looking to strike whilst the iron is hot as they go to the top of the crest here at Budweiser Balcony. Rondeau, I think, could be the dark horse here as long as he keeps touch with Scott and Duncan in the battle for the overall race lead.
And he's no doubt going to want this win if he can manage to get it, because he hasn't taken victory yet this season. 3 podiums. He's got 1 second place and 2 thirds under his belt, and clearly is on the charge here today, as that's going to be close down to the inside. Duncan Scott threading the needle, coming through the sweeper to get by our GT4s. That was Rob Russell, probably thinking he's had enough action for the last couple laps.
Yeah, that's true. This is a wonderful onboard, and again, you're going to see this closing speed. Rondeau closing in on Duncan. He's right in the rear diffuser, right in the rear wing. Has to use discretion as the better part of valor, but they've got the 266 in front. And Larry Haase quickly stays on the racing line, and both Duncan and Rondeau have to pass him on the outside. But still, this is a great display of how to negotiate your way through backmarker traffic. I think that was that wasn't Rob Russell they've gone through, but you can just see that this is now giving Dylan Scott the opportunity to run away as Rondeau nearly into the back of Duncan through Budweiser Balcony. Down the hill they go, and they've got the 704 Adam Abrams quickly in shot, and then we've got another car to deal with, but Rondeau looking really, really racy in the number 11, and Jad Duncan is trying to do everything he can. Rondeau quickly to the right hand side, and you can just see they get through on Matt Hollander, now back into second position, 3 seconds away from Federico Del Toro, who put it on pole, back into the top spot in the GT4s, but these laps are going past very, very quickly. Neither Rondeau nor Duncan are fuel saving. Rondeau looking for the move here as Del Toro gets out of the way. Rondeau in that lovely Hot Wheels liveried Porsche trying to capitalise, but it's not working at the moment. Meantime, Marciniak going around the outside of Adam Abrams at Castrol Corner. That was a great move.
Yeah, brave stuff. We've seen a lot of that already tonight. Drivers just using every which way to try and get around one another, and the traffic is absolutely playing a part here. Dylan Scott using it to great effect. He pulled off by about 2 seconds over Duncan and Rondeau while they squabbled with one another in and amongst all that GT4 traffic. This is up the hill towards Budweiser Balcony as we check on the replay. Oh, Russell, mistake all on his own. And oh, that was a big hit, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that for those Porsche aficionados out there, the cooling system's normally the radiator that helps provide that wonderful cool air, and with the pressurized cooling system helping to cool down that flat 6 engine in the back of the car. If that gets really significantly damaged, and that could be a possible terminal issue for the engine, because it will start overheating if there is a coolant loss, and that can be replicated here in iRacing, let me tell you that much, as we see Jeffrey Shulham a little bit on the comeback trail here after his, in the words of Limp Bizkit, rolling adventure earlier on tonight. But that car is now back at full racing speed, and currently running P13. It's just been dramas for Shulham, Baxter and Viverco here tonight in the GTEs, but The top 7 out of the 10 are within about half a lap of each other at the moment, from Dylan Scott all the way down to Robert Leclerc. We can have a look now. Oh, this is going to be James Baxter. No, 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 no. Goes straight into the back of... didn't quite catch the number on that one, but
I think that
lost
was
the front
Terzi.
bumper. Oh.
Yeah. Unfortunate. Yeah, and we saw Terzi was having a little fight with Momeyer shortly afterwards, so car was okay enough to keep carrying on. There's definitely a few drivers that are going to want to use that spare car once they get to their pit stop. Meanwhile, BJ Fulton, this is he versus Dustin Heindel for 4th in the GTE cars, keeping tight up on top of him. Back to Rob Russell in the meantime. Try to check his lap times. I think they're still relatively comparable, so hopefully it hasn't started hurting the engine here, but he'll also probably want to use that spare car once he gets to pit lane. Let's ride on board and watch this fight with Adam Abrams.
Yeah, into Castro Corner, and a little bit of dust being kicked up by the car in front. I would believe that's probably Larry Haase in the 266 with that distinctive black and big orange stripe down the middle. But yeah, it's just wonderful to see the onboard comparisons between the GTs and the GT4s. As I said, these are production-based race cars, so you can see a lot of travel happening with the dampers and the suspension, and obviously these cars are a little bit more bouncy. There's no aerodynamic efficiency like we have with the GTEs, so as we see picture in picture, Heindel blocking Fulton at the moment. Fulton pulls to the inside into the left-hander at turn 1, but Heindel just able to carry that overspeed through there. I think BJ Fulton's probably a little bit worried about trying to plant it on the inside, because if he does and he goes a bit too deep, then that's game over for the pair of them.
Yeah, we've already seen how dramatically the cars will leave the course here like this as we get 2 of our GT4s, or no, a GT4 and a GTE tangled with one another. Abrams, and was that...
Baxter.
Oh, no. I think we already saw Baxter with a run-in with another of those cars just a little bit earlier. He's going to head down pit lane once again to try and take another, what I assume is another spare car, as he actually, I think, gets a speeding penalty as well on his way in there. Back to that fight you were talking about between Heindel and Fulton. This is for 4th place in class, 3rd of the way through this event already, and the action feels like we have had a whole race worth already.
Yeah, and then we ride on board from the rear screen of Dustin Heindel. Now Fulton, this time looking a little bit braver. He's going to put it late on the brakes, but still Heindel has about that 5 to 6 mile-an-hour speed advantage round the outside, just able to carry that momentum. I think Dustin, like a lot of drivers, such as Dylan Scott, such as Chad Duncan, feel really comfortable throwing it to the outside, which is quite unconventional going into Castrol Corner, but they just make the best of it. They just think, okay, I've got a little bit more purchase, I've got a little bit more grip, I feel a bit more confident, let's just keep it round on the outside. And you know, when BJ Fulton, he should be a little bit more elbows out, a little bit more aggressive, and just go maybe that extra 10 to 15 meters deeper on the brakes. But if it catches him out, like I said, it could be game over, and it could put him and Heindel into the local scenery.
I wonder if that's that little bit of banking that they've got in Castrol Corner that's just helping them run that outside line and carry the speed out of it to keep them safe. Let's see if we get it again here coming through once more. In the meantime, that is Dylan Scott that we saw off to the side of the screen pitting in. So he's taking his strategy now and getting his fuel and tires, and off he'll go. And no, we won't get a repeat this time, as they'll stay single file through turn 1.
Dylan Scott didn't actually stop on his marks. He has now, so he's right at the end of pit road, but this means that Heindel and Fulton now battling over effectively 3rd place overall. But Mark Rondeau is cleared off into the distance. It's like a tumbleweed in a Wild Western movie. He's about He's well up the road. He's about nearly 4 seconds up the road from these two. So whilst they're battling away, this is hampering both of them, Joe. It's compromising them on lap time because they're having this fantastic mano-a-mano scrap. But it's giving Rondo just the impetus to go, right, okay. It's like Cole Trickle in Days of Thunder. Harry, I'm out of here. It's just like he's just gone.
I mean, very appropriate because this is so close to Hollywood. They do shoot a lot of racing footage at this track for movies and commercials. John Momeyer, whoa, he's going to need a map to get back to the circuit. He's a long ways off. He does eventually find his way back around, and looks like he'll get back onto the circuit, but took an excursion somewhere off into the mountains for a brief moment. As BJ Fulton having to get aggressive with the traffic, trying to keep up with Dustin Heindel. This has got to be frustrating for BJ, Alex, because he started on the front row, and here he's stuck now in fourth.
Yeah, it's the thing is that we all know that as the cars, burn that fuel, go through the tires, the car has a slightly higher center of gravity, so there's the aerodynamics are not pushing the car down into the tarmac as much as they would do normally. So when you've got a full tank of gas, when you've got a brand new set of boots on the car, it feels a lot more planted and it's more conducive to the setup, because you and I both know that these drivers will have been practicing quite significantly and trying to do a 90-minute race and thinking, okay, what's the best strat that I can pull here? What's going to work for me depending on where I qualify? And sometimes, yeah, you could say that BJ Fulton's going to be a bit disappointed with what's happening. But look, they both go in to cover each other off, and also Mark Rondo. So Jad Duncan, who's now on lap 27, is making his way through traffic. So this could help him a little bit. Now, by not feeding his way too quickly through the traffic, he might be able to do a little bit of fuel saving. And plus, he'll get that extra bit of speed courtesy of the cars in front. Now, it might be a GT4, but it's punching a hole through the dirty air. What he does not want is aero wash.
Certainly, and that is Rob Russell, who's back up to P2 in the GT4 cars, but it's Hollander actually leading, because Del Toro has pitted this lap. I think he's just returned to the track, but we know that Hollander took a stop during the yellow, so he should be able to go longer than everybody else around him. And maybe that's his ploy, is he does need that one more stop most likely, but I imagine it'll be a bit of a shorter stop, and now he's got all this clear air in front of him.
Yeah, and that could really give him the opportunity to pull away from Rob Russell, who has yet to dive into the pits, which he does now, along with overall race leader Jad Duncan. There's Dylan Scott, who is now coming through Budweiser balcony at the crest of the circuit itself, and it's coming through into 5 and then into Monroe Ridge at turn 6 before we head to this is what I like, where you've got this wonderful bit of topography, and of course, yes, being the oldest permanent road course in the USA, it's, there's a lot of automotive magazines in the United States like Car and Driver that will do the smoking tire with Matt Farah. A lot of companies that will come out here and do a lot of testing, and you're going to see drivers such as Dylan Scott, who's now going to be ahead of Dylan Scott now, he's been in there for a little bit longer, just over 30 seconds as Jad Duncan. So Mark Rondo leads by 4.5 seconds. Thomas Isabel now up to P3. Jad Duncan 40 seconds. Now, has Jad picked up a penalty, I wonder, because that is quite a long time to be in the pits. Just over 3/4 of a minute for the number 83 that was leading the race before he came into pit road.
Yeah, I'm starting to wonder if we've got some split strategies, because he's not alone. Dustin Heindel was in there for 44 seconds. But you do have a lot of drivers that are then there for 18. I'm seeing 24. Fulton with a 31. I wonder if some of them are trying to split this up into even stints for these shorter pit stops, whereas Duncan and Heindel are just, fill it all the way up and go until it's dry.
Yeah, and then at least you can short fuel it, still put the tyres on at the same time to maybe get the undercut on the opposition. And it's going to be about how the lap times are going to differentiate. Mark Rondeau was in the pits for 18.5 seconds, not including transit time. Dylan Scott, 24.1. Thomas Isabel, 18.2. BJ Fulton, just a shade over 31 seconds. And then Jad Duncan and Dustin Heindel Around about 45 seconds apiece. Jeffrey Shulham was in there for 1:15. Robert Leclerc was in there for 17 and just under 18 seconds. So yeah, I think maybe I would probably say that Duncan and Heindel might have just put a full tank of gas in it and put a brand new set of tyres on there and go, right, let's just go 11 tenths and see how hard we can push.
It's kind of fascinating how this jumbled it up and gives Rondeau the lead of this race now with 51 minutes left to go. So our read on the fuel is going to be a bit interesting because we had that caution in there. Most drivers going until about 55 minutes left, maybe a little bit more than that on this one. So that would be about 35 minutes or so that they went on that stint, but that's with some pace laps thrown in. So I guess we could maybe guesstimate about 30-minute stint traditionally then. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the when they pitted, I mean, Mark Rondeau, you'll be looking at lap 52 to come in. Dylan Scott, lap 48. Thomas Isabel, lap 50. BJ Fulton, same lap as Rondeau, lap 52. Duncan and Heindel, you're looking at lap 54. Lap 54 for Duncan, lap 52 for Heindel. So yeah, I think it's going to be a case of who could really maximise their opportunity in this midway point of the race. I mean, going to have Larry Haase. Oh, careful, Larry. And then bang. And that was into the 704 of Adam Abrams. They both go sympathy spinning, and Larry Haase loses the rear wing thanks to the catch fencing on the outside. So that's not going to help his aero on the back end of that Porsche 718 Cayman.
No, I think he has since been into pit lane to get that car replaced and has hopped back out. Running 8th right now is Larry Haase. Actually, yeah, he's doing that right this second. He's returning to the track just now off screen to the right-hand side. Mark Rondeau, though, just cruising along on a nice Monday evening drive, although what's the lap times look like between Rondeau and Scott here?
1 second between them. Scott is a last lap around at a 1:11.725. Mark
He's way
Rondeau,
faster.
1:12.7. So that says to me Dylan Scott has firmly got the fire lit in the belly, but he's just got to make sure he doesn't make contact with Rob Russell going through into Budweiser balcony, but then he can start accelerating and put the pedal to the metal as we get this wonderful onboard where the dashboard is blurred as that was the Simpsons liveried Porsche. I'm trying to remember, I think that was Leclerc.
Yeah,
who's now being put down a lap by the pair. So yeah, going to see what their lap times are this time around, because very shortly they'll be coming out of turn 9 as they go through the sweeper. But on this particular occasion, it looks like Rondeau has started responding to Dylan Scott. And across the line, Rondeau's last lap, 1:12.8. Scott, 1:12.7. So just 6/100ths of a second separating that time, because they both had to deal with back marker traffic. And I think the reason why Dylan Scott caught up to Mark Rondeau by about a second was because he didn't have so much traffic to negotiate, Joe.
Larry Haase down on pit lane for a second time. Not sure if he had some sort of penalty or what exactly he's doing here, but he's making an extra visit and will need at least one more to get back to the end, I'm pretty sure, based on what we've been seeing in terms of the fuel. So this is a bit of a strange one, but I'm sure he has his reasonings for pitting when he is, as we ride on board with Scott to 150, yeah, there it is, 155, and then scrubbing the speed off, picking it up to 158 on the short little stint down into the second apex before he has to slow it down. Minimum speed of 130 through that corner. That really tells you how quickly these cars can take these big open turns.
Yeah, and then it's about 115 through Castrol Corner, dropping down about 25 miles an hour from 150, and then it's just, you can see he's feathering that throttle here through Rabbits here, and then bang on the power again, 130 miles an hour, 1:36 before lifting off. And then on the brakes, then through into Budweiser Balcony, 90 miles an hour at the crest, down to 70, and then it's 4 on the floor and foot to the floor here. And look, he's now catching. That gap is now half a second. Dylan Scott is sizing up a move here on Mark Rondeau. I feel it in my bones here, Joe, that probably coming out of turn 9, if he's close enough behind, look, into this sweeper here at about 150 miles an hour through the sweeper, Scott has got the run on Rondeau, and he knows it.
It's been a wild race. How aggressive does he try to take this? Because it could all go awry, and we've seen that multiple times. He clearly is quicker than that number 11, doesn't need to pass immediately. We ride on board there in the upper right, looking back at Dylan Scott from Rondeau. Doesn't go for the pass into Castrol corner. Switches back up into Rabbit's Ear. Is he trying to line him up for turn 4?
Could be the case, but I think maybe he could get a good chance going into the sweeper, but slightly wide exit there from Mark Rondeau. It's giving the sense of opportunity to the favour of the man behind Dylan Scott, who swings it a little bit wider through, now down Budweiser Balcony, heading into the left at turn 5 before we go into the right at Monroe Ridge. Then it's the run down to the sweeper, both nearly catching a little bit of air as they go over the hump, and that gap is closing 2.5 tenths. And look at how Dylan Scott, in comparison with Mark Rondeau, places the car into turn 9. He sweeps it to the outside to try and get the crisscross and try and get that ultimate traction coming out of that corner. That's where he needs to be, just under 2.5 tenths of a second behind. They're about to complete, and they have just completed lap 34. We're on to lap 35. Scott to the inside, and Rondeau high, wide, keeps it planted through Castrol corner. That was a mighty bit of great defending from the number 11.
Shut that door firmly in the face of Dylan Scott, and confidently too. He knew that he could rebuff him there into that corner. Another little look from Scott coming up the left-hander. In fact, he cuts back underneath him, gets him to slide wide. Rondeau with some connection issues in the meantime. Hopefully that doesn't cause more problems between the pair of them. Back down the hill they go, wheel to wheel. This is tough to go side by side through here, and he's not going to make it once again. Rondeau confidently sneaking through as we got a car off track just emerging next to them. That was Marciniak, who thankfully gets out of the way.
Yeah, I think it's about how Dylan Scott picks his moments, but Rondeau had the number 08's number as they're going to go through into the sweeper again. And this time, well, how far back is Dylan Scott? Gap is nearly double to what it was one lap ago. I think Scott maybe got his backside a little bit burned there with the moves he was trying to pull off, but Rondeau just gave him the opportunity, saying, look, if I make a mistake, you've got to try and see if you can take advantage of it. And no matter what Rondeau did, Dylan Scott's playbook at that time was not as strong as it could have been.
Certainly not. I do think this is a case where patience might be very much a virtue if you're Dylan Scott. He's, like we keep saying, he seems so much quicker, but he needs to be smart about this, not give this one away, because the win is there potentially for the taking. Down the hill, more traffic once again. This time Jim Garamani staying off to the right-hand side over Monroe Ridge. Such a narrow part of track with that rise over the crest, but they get through there cleanly. It's just still not close enough for Scott.
I've just seen in the back of shot, Joe, Thomas Isabel is starting to close the last lap around. Rondeau did a 12.9, Scott a 13.2, Isabel an 11.5. So whilst they are battling with this back marker traffic, they've got, I think that's James.
Oh, he got held up a lot here.
Yeah, this is going to be really, really close. Scott powers through this time, had enough of a side draft, and this time, nice and easy. Rondeau did not try to fight it too much, and the reason being, with 42 minutes on the timer left until we hit 0, it's about playing the smart game, not the hard game.
Stars finally aligned for Dylan Scott. He was able to get by. Now, can he run away as well? Because we always like to say, Alex, the traffic giveth and the traffic taketh. So he's on the other end now, whereas before he was trying to use it as a pick a few times. It could hold him up and make him vulnerable to Rondeau.
Yeah, but it's also about just negotiating this back market traffic as best you can. And when they've got James Baxter just in front of them, I mean, Thomas Isabel is slowly closing. He's actually the quickest out of the top three, and Baxter just gives right away 100% to Dylan Scott, who was going at a rapid rate of speed at over 145 plus miles an hour. But with Baxter being in the way, now Rondeau's got to get past him, and this has cost him time. Now the gap between them at one point was no more than 2.5 tenths of a second a couple of laps ago. And there is Thomas Isabel. He is just calmly getting on in that number 16 with the business at hand. And, well, let's look at it this way, folks. Dylan Scott started from the outside of row 2. Mark Rondeau inside of row 3, having made up 3 and 4 spots respectively. But Thomas Isabel is the only driver out of the entire, well, apart from James Baxter, out of the entirety from the top 9 that has not lost a position where they are now, because we're into the second half of the race, and Isabel is just looking rather comfortable. He's just playing, as I said, it's the longer game, and right as you said, you can't necessarily win the race in turn 1, but you can certainly lose it.
Well, and it almost looked like he was going to lose it on lap 1. He was the one that was off the circuit coming up the hill, and the caution saved his bacon, allowed him to regroup, catch the back of the field, and he's wasted absolutely no time getting up to these top 3. Last lap, I think the traffic cost him. He was slower than both first and second, but I'm keeping an eye on what this one is as we turn our attention to Matt Hollander, who has recently had a pit stop about 2 laps ago, is back out in second place, so he's still looking very good here. Isabel this time a 1:11.5 versus Rondeau's 1:11.7 and a 12 flat for Scott.
Robert Leclerc, I think, just had a big moment as well. He was off track for quite a time. He was the number 8 who's made up 2 spots from 9th on the grid. Currently runs P7 overall. So he's had a bit of a code brown and a clean up on aisle 3. But yeah, I mean, Mark Rondeau now starting to close that gap, was 3 tenths quicker than Dylan Scott on the previous tour. Thomas Isabel slightly quicker than Mark Rondeau. That gap is still stabilising at about 7 tenths. So here we see the number 8 of Robert Leclerc. Oh, just loses the back end on his own.
Much like Homer Simpson, a bit of a lazy spin for him, unfortunately, as he catches the dirt on the outside. And on top of it, they do have an incident limit in this race. He's got a black flag. So he's going to have to come and serve that for too many incident points.
Yeah. Whereas Matt Hollander has got a gap of about 1.7 seconds between himself and Federico Del Toro, and the top 5, well, the top 6 in the GT4 class are back to where they were when they started things just over 50 minutes ago. So Del Toro leads from Hollander, and the gap is 1.9 seconds. Marciniak is in P3, and there is Dustin Heindel going through on the number 69. Around the outside, down the start-finish stretch. And yeah, just seeing the closing speeds between the GTs and the GT4s is rather mightily impressive, especially when we get that onboard perspective from either one of the classes. Now,
on the surface, I'm sure it seems like Hollander's strategy might not have been the best, because if he stopped, was it 4 laps ago, it looks like now. He's not going to be able to make it to the end. But he is now going to have a much shorter stop for this next one. And Federico Del Toro still has a stop too. So essentially, this 8 tenths of a second gap might disappear or completely switch around, and Hollander could wind up in the lead after that last pit stop. So I still think his call to make that stop during the caution was actually pretty clever.
Yeah, because he did have to serve that speeding penalty as well, if I remember correctly, Joe. So that put him a little bit on the back foot, but he's managed to claw that disadvantage back, and is now within 1.5 seconds of the man that we see in front as Hollander comes out of turn 9 and then down the start-finish stretch once again. And well, there we see a recovering Daniel Viverko, and then Jeffrey Shulam, both go through, one to the outside, one to the inside on the run down to Castrol Corner. But again, just really wonderful to see the amount of effort and concentration that not just the GTE drivers have to have, but also the GT4 cars, because they're the ones that are effectively, as we saw, within 9 minutes of this 90-minute enduro, that they were being lapped rather quickly by the GTEs who were closing in on them hand over fist.
Getting close to the 2/3 mark of this race. Oh, contact between the lapped car of Momeyer and Hollander. And Momeyer comes off the worse on that one, but I think he got away without contacting the wall, and will carry on, but I'm sure he'll feel a little bit irritated about that.
Yes, he definitely will feel aggrieved, because I think it was a space that Matt Hollander thought was there, but John Momeyer did turn in. And sometimes in those kind of situations, if you're not battling with the person that's trying to go up the inside, sometimes you're better off opening up the steering and just keeping that window of opportunity opened. I mean, you know, it's like Ayrton Senna said, if you don't go for a gap, you're not a racing driver. We're going to have a look at the replay from the helicam here. So Momeyer opens the door, up the inside goes Hollander, tag to the right rear, and the number 6 goes around at the top, Budweiser balcony. Unfortunate, I think.
Yeah, the way that racing line just tends to open that up, I'm sure that was very tempting. Hollander still at only a second back from Del Toro, so he didn't lose all that much. In fact, there you can see the pair of our leaders in the GT4 class within the same shot right now. Del Toro's going to have to be very clean and consistent, because clearly Matt Hollander is fast today. He's led part of this race. He's been pushed back a bit by his alternate strategy, and he also is now blinking. So I hope that clears up for him, because, again, you could find yourself, unfortunately, ejected from a session if your connection gets too bad. But just a little bit to go here, and Hollander has a shot at retaking the lead.
Yeah, I think by that move that he just made on John Momeyer, I think it was just a little bit of desperation starting to creep in. And it is just about those drivers that are here that want to go all out for the victory. There are some times when you've just got to think about, okay, I've still got 34 minutes, or I've still got 40 minutes left on the timer. He's not that far ahead of me. I know I can catch him, but there's possibly some potential damage that Matt Hollander might have done to that left front corner when he dived up the inside of John Momeyer, because if Momeyer was turning in, then that's going to impact on the left front wheel. That could then also have a problem with the alignment of the steering. So if there is a slight problem with Matt Hollander's steering, if it's left hand down a little bit or right hand down a bit due to that contact, then that could possibly impede him in some respect. But Mark Rondeau now bringing the fight back to Dylan Scott. So ding ding, seconds out, round 2.
Absolutely. Rondeau catching up to him. And whoa, the traffic making a bit of a late move there. I think that was Momeyer, and thankfully they both stay on the track. That gave a real scare to the 11 car. He stays within about a second of Dylan Scott. I'm not sure how, because he was way off into the marbles offline.
Yeah, well, that gap seems to be a bit of a pendulum swing, that Dylan Scott will expand that lead. It's now at 1.3 seconds as they're now coming down onto the start-finish stretch, and this is where Rondeau's able to pick up a little bit of a tow. Not by much, but it gets the gap down to 1.2 as they hurtle into Castrol Corner at turn 1 before the right-hander here at Rabbit's Ear. Gap goes back up to 1.3. And also one of the things that I think we do need to remember here, Joe, is that it's not just about the fuel levels decreasing. It's also about how hard are the drivers, respectively, working their tyres. Because the more daring and adventurous you get in corners, and that's not with having to get past back marker traffic, the more risk versus reward you put into it, the more possibility that you could be put into the hands of somebody else who go like, well, you haven't conserved your tyres, I've got a little bit more fuel, let's see where this goes.
Always got to be thinking forward, especially in these endurance races where strategy plays a bigger part than our traditional 40-minute races we've been seeing this season. James Baxter just pitted, should be able to get to the end from here, but Baxter's 3 laps down from the leaders, so probably not going to be vying for the win on this one, unfortunately, as we watch BJ Fulton waiting to see who the next driver in will be, because theoretically, you probably should be able to get to the finish from around here.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dylan Scott could be one of the first to pit. He's now on lap 46, so probably this and another couple of laps before he might need to pit. But with the back marker traffic, there's a little bit more of lifting and coasting, a little bit more braking application, so there may be a window of opportunity if Dylan Scott can maybe get himself to add a push, maybe a 26 lapper in the second stint, so that'll put him onto lap 50. Might give him the chance, as we see Chad Duncan a little bit further back, who was one of the people that has led this race overall from points. So we've had several different leaders, Dylan Scott, Mark Rondeau, and BJ Fulton, Chad Duncan, amongst others. And we've had the wonderful off-track adventures of Robert Leclerc with the Dole spin, as you probably call it, now that he's got that Simpsons livery. That's I can't do a good home impersonation, I'm afraid, but it's the best I can try. But here we're going to see, oh no, Adam Abrams again gets contacted. James Baxter has done, that's the second time, I think, within the last 15 minutes that Abrams has been on the receiving end of a mistake by James Baxter, who is now in the pits and has been there for over 70 seconds. That is his 4th trip into pit lane for the number 14.
I have a suspicion that was an incident limit for James Baxter, because he immediately towed it into pit lane. You get 4 incident points for car contact. So yeah, let's see, it is 17 incidents that you get the first drive-through penalty, and then every 10 beyond that you get more before you get to 34 incidents, and at 34 you will be disqualified from the race. So pretty sure that James had managed to rack enough up that he has been sent down to try and serve that, as well as probably try and repair that car, because that was quite the hit to Abrams' right rear.
He's probably already exhausted his 2 spare cars that he's probably needed over the course of this race, as we now see BJ Fulton and Chad Duncan trying to make their way through.
Interesting that Hollander and Del Toro have kind of come into a stalemate on time, as Leclerc has another off.
Well, that was definitely not Apple CarPlay or Android Auto guided. That was by an Ordnance Survey map from the 1970s, I believe, the way he went through there. Yeah, I mean, it's, yeah, Federico Del Toro is losing a little bit of time. Obviously, we're having the likes of Fulton and Duncan go through. Oh, moment there for Adam Abrams. He's got to watch the rejoin.
I think he managed to get back on safely here, as we follow Duncan down the road once again. Yeah, we have to remember that Duncan's slightly out of position due to the longer pit stop compared to those around him. Speaking of which, Dylan Scott just came in. There he is there on the upper right hand of your screen. 27 minutes left on the clock, so should be mostly a full fill to get him to the end from here. We'll watch and see what the time is while we see Duncan now going by him on that main straight.
Well, he's in 4 laps earlier than I thought he might have been, because he came in, I think, I think he came in on lap 24, was one of the first main pit stops to be done. So Rondeau could go as far as lap 52. He's on lap 49 at the minute. Thomas Isabella's about a lap and a half. 30.3 was the amount of time, apart from transit through the pit lane, that Dylan Scott was stationary on his mark. So yeah, let's see what the number 08 can do, because very soon we'll have this raft of pit stops from lap 50 onwards, and Isabel could be the first to blink unless he's managed to save a little bit of fuel. He's been very, very consummate at the moment, but Marc Rondeau in the Hot Wheels 11 is ahead by about 10 seconds at the moment. So Rondeau using some great defending that we saw earlier on ahead of Dustin Heindel and Dylan Scott and Marc Rondeau and also Thomas Isabel. There's an opportunity. Go on.
Sorry, real quick. I just realized we've had a change for the lead in the GT4s. Hollander has gotten through, so Del Toro has dropped back and is now about 1.2 seconds behind. Sorry to interrupt. I just realized that they were no longer in their position.
Just going to have a look on the sector times here. Del Toro lost a big chunk of time in Sector 2. He lost a second in Sector 2 and 6/10 in the opening sector. So, yeah, it was actually, Hollander just got the job done. Del Toro's been losing a little bit of speed. And I think because as the fuel tank's lowered and the tyres are sort of starting to fall off a little bit of a cliff, if you will, that Hollander's really started to make the best of the situation. That gap is starting to expand to now 1.5 seconds.
And Rondeau is in. So pit stop for our leader. Isabel follows, so same lap. Going to be pitting. Will BJ Fulton do the same? No, Fulton will carry on. So he's going to be our new leader. While it has certainly been a comedy of errors for Robert Leclerc.
Oh dear. I wonder what Marge Simpson would be saying right about now. Like literally, you could not get a more comical entry into pit road than that.
It has been a day for that 8 car. He's already 2 laps down. It's just not going his way. Rondeau will emerge in 4th. Isabel is still waiting for his stop to finish. And it's going to be a longer one than Rondeau's, that's for sure. Whoa, we go 3 wide coming up into turn 2 there. And that was involving our 2nd place car in the GT4. So this is, oh my goodness. Whoa, and things are going to finally go awry for Scott. He gets shoved across the course, and then another hit there with Schulem, who swings across him a second time.
Scott's got damage. I saw the hood of that car fly off. That car's got front end damage. That means Dylan Scott, if he's got a spare car, use it now because there's only 24 minutes to go. BJ Fulton now in pit lane. Chad Duncan now has got the lead, but that was nearly 4 wide going through into turn 3 up the hill towards Budweiser balcony, and it just all properly went wrong. And you can see the closing rate. Jeffrey Schulem goes right, inadvertently tags Dylan Scott, then gets tagged himself, and there's the contact between the pair. I think Dylan Scott might have just gotten away with it. Dustin Heindel in pit lane, so Dylan Scott looks to have, well, I did see a hood fly off into the distance. I'm not too sure whether it was Dylan Scott's or whether it was Jeffrey Schulem's, but if Dylan Scott got away with that, he's a very lucky man.
Extremely lucky. Yeah, you're right. It looks like that may have been just the net code correcting itself, where it initially thought he had hit hard enough to blow off the hood, but it's still there. And Del Toro nearly involved in that, although he's also got a black flag. That's interesting. And Hollander was the one that made contact with Schulem in all of that as well. So he probably is pretty flustered inside that machine, knowing that things could have so easily collected him more than it did. But he's still our leader now that Del Toro has taken his pit stop and emerges in what looks to be 4th place. Now, there is Matt Hollander, about 15 seconds ahead of Christopher Marciniak, but Matt still owes us a pit stop. And to your point about Dylan Scott, he definitely does not want to come in and take that spare car because he just took his pit stop 3 laps ago. Make that 4 now.
I think in some respects, with what happened in that 4 wide exchange, Jeffrey Schulem actually turned across the front of Matt Hollander. So Schulem, I think in both respects, did go beyond the line, let's say, a little bit in terms of peripheral vision and spatial awareness, because like literally he came across Matt Hollander, you know, he went right, there was Dylan Scott who had to go off circuit, then he's gone left to give Scott the room, and he's inadvertently collided with Hollander, who has had nowhere to go, and that's ended up turning Schulen round backwards. So I think if you look at it from that perspective, Dylan Scott and Matt Hollander, from my observation there, I don't think we're at any fault in any way, shape or form in that incident that just transpired.
We have lost our first driver of the race. Larry Haas is officially retired from the event. Otherwise, all the other 18 cars are still out on track. We've been riding on board with Fulton, chasing Duncan. This is for third in the GTE cars. And coming up to turn 1, all the way up to 6th gear. He's got a good run here, but I think he's going to run out of straightaway before he can dive underneath. And indeed, he has to sit and wait.
I'm just waiting, Mr. Peak, until BJ Fulton decides to bring out the big guns, get his elbows out and throw it around the outside of turn 1, because that's happened to him on a multitude of occasions in this race. And now he needs to up the controlled aggression. Fastest lap of the race now on lap 53 by Thomas Isabel, 1:10.754. He's currently running in P5. He's about 20 seconds behind this battle here. So if Duncan and Fulton continue to battle away, I mean, looking at the lap times, well, Jad Duncan had only just gotten out of pit lane, so his lap was a 1:36. Fulton was a 1:13.1. Isabel 2.4 seconds quicker down in 5th. So it's about how Thomas Isabel might decide to push 10 tenths, maybe even a little bit further beyond, to try and close that gap if these two continue to squabble as they are now, because this is the battle for third place in GTE.
He's a lot closer this time, but again, afraid to try and get his nose in there for an attempt at turn 1. And critically, all of our drivers on the lead lap in the GTEs have taken their final pit stop and are good to go to the finish from here. So if they're going to make a move, it's going to have to be out on track.
Completely agree. And Fulton just getting closer and closer to Duncan. They go through 3 into 4 here at Budweiser Balcony. And it's just try and point the car in the right direction. Make sure you don't go slightly outside of the white lines. And just put the pedal down. Just go for it. You've got to. This is at that point, we're now getting into the last 19 minutes here, Joe, that it is going to be an all-out sprint. And you can see that Fulton, again, closing in on Duncan. That gap is less than 2 tenths. Through into the sweeper at over 145 miles an hour, now into turn 9. How big is the gap between Duncan and Fulton coming out of the final corner? 3 tenths. This is going to give Fulton the opportunity to get a good run if he can get the toe. It's about 2.5 car lengths between the pair. 0.22, 2 tenths. He needs to be about 1.5 tenths, maybe less behind of Duncan to facilitate that move up the inside into Castrol Corner, but by doing so that would put him directly on the outside for Ravitz here, the right-hander at turn 2.
Yeah, he's going to have to be strategic about this without a doubt. Interestingly, as I was looking at our pit stops, with the only driver actually that we need to make the last stop to get to the end is, guess who? Matt Hollander, who, as I said, allowed himself to go that little bit longer, get that shorter of a stop at the very end, and he's got a minute lead right now. So if he can get a splash and dash and get back out on track before Marciniak catches him, he can still win this race.
Yeah, I think if it's like a 10-second pit stop with around about a 20 to 25 second transit time through the pit lane, then that would be more than enough to keep the lead. That would give him a 25 second advantage. We're going to see Jim Garamani. Oh, just loses the back end. Oh, and cannons into, I think that was Adam Abrams, unfortunately, on the right-hand side that took the brunt of that. But still, props to Jim to keeping on trucking.
Yeah, he's had a rough one. He's 19 laps down from the leaders currently. we've lost Federico Del Toro. His internet connection became too feeble, and he has been ejected from the session. He can rejoin if he wants, but this is the nail in the coffin. Federico can absolutely not win the race from here.
That is a real shame. And that is not what you want to have happen. The minute that ping goes over that high limit, and then straight away it's game over. That is a real shame for Federico. He'd done such a great effort by putting it on pole position in GT4 by, what was it, nearly 3.5 tenths of a second as Daniel Viverco decides to go hop, skip and a jump out of the final corner. Meantime, BJ Fulton is round the outside of Jad Duncan. Is this the moment where he puts it round the outside? He does not get the move completed. He needed to keep that throttle pinned for that little bit longer, that little bit more, and I think he would have got the job done.
And you know, that moment that you mentioned there with Viverco, I think is what kicked that all off. I feel like that forced a hesitation out of Jad Duncan. Could have been a chance for BJ Fulton, but just could not seem to make it stick the long way around of turn one. He's still there, though, Alex. I think he's got a chance to try and make this happen in the final 15 minutes.
Yeah, he's got to really tee it up going through into the sweeper as they come out of Monroe Ridge. And then it's this quick run through Wings Leg, then into the sweeper here at turn 8. And here he's still accelerating. He's got to try and carry that speed through. And that's a better line. Look at him, a tenth behind Duncan out of the final corner. That's where he needed to be. They've got John Mamea just in front of them. But Duncan gets the assist from the GT4 in front. And then that does not give BJ Fulton the opportunity that he would have liked to have presented to himself. So it's just about picking your moments. And at the minute, it's not going the way of BJ Fulton at all. Jad Duncan is still staying ahead, but they are heading up the hill towards the crest at Budweiser Balcony. Is this the moment where BJ Fulton gets the absolute best run he needs? Sweeps a little bit wider, carries the car a little bit higher, now applies the power, now tries to get the slipstream from Duncan as they go down the hill once again. He's there or thereabouts, but he's just got to time it right through the sweeper and turn 9. This could be the opportunity that Fulton has been waiting for.
The irony of all this is they're fighting for third, but this was our front row at the start of the race, these two. So kind of missing out on a chance for a victory here today a bit from both of them as they cut back down to the apex. This is a fantastic run. Fulton, maybe with his best chance we've seen all race long to finally get by that yellow and black number 83. What did he learn from last time? Trying to go around the outside. He still does not get it down as early as he should, and it costs him the chance as he slots back into line. I almost feel like he needs to be a little bit more aggressive, pinching down to the apex.
I think what he needs to do is try and throw Duncan a dummy. But now, look, the back marker traffic could play into Fulton's lap at this moment in time, because if Duncan makes a mistake, he'll be kicking himself, not anybody else. And with Fulton there, it gives Duncan the impetus to try and make hay whilst the sun shines here at Willow Springs. Gets through the back marker traffic relatively untroubled. That has put Fulton back on the back foot again, and the gap between them now has climbed to 7.5 tenths of a second. And we're going to see the replay here. John Mamea, off the track, loses the back end. This is going to be a nasty roller coaster ride. He locks up the brakes and he spins up the rear tyres. Well held, John Mamea. That was a code brown if there was ever one.
Found the rallycross version of the GT4, I guess, for a brief moment. 4 wheels in the air, but thankfully landed the right side up on that one. Another thing to keep track of in this is definitely the more exciting battle, so I'd like to keep our cameras here. But I've been watching Rondeau and Scott. They're very evenly paced, and it's about 2 seconds apart, as that's a little too wide from Fulton as he dips his wheels into the dirt. But as we've seen, if the traffic costs Rondo at the wrong place at the wrong time, I'm pretty certain that battle for the lead could be kicking off in just a heartbeat here.
Well, looking at the sector times, Rondeau has lost over the opening 2 sectors on this lap, Joe. The best part of 3/4 of a second. The gap now down to 1.8. And Fulton he's throwing everything, including the kitchen sink at Jad Duncan for this 3rd place. It's not been an easy one for both of these drivers. They've had their ups and downs through this chapter of the series, but Fulton now gets the run. That's more like it. Gap is now less than a tenth. He's going to keep it. Is he going to keep it to the inside? He needs to do something to catch Jad Duncan unawares. A dummy would be the perfect personification. He could have done like Nigel Mansell did in the early 1990s in Formula One. Switch to one side, switch quickly to the other, and not give your opponent an opportunity to respond. But again, it's just... I mean, I'm wondering if BJ Fulton's looking not just at this round, but also maybe looking at the final 3 rounds of the series, because if you do also consistently run at the sharp end, you're going to be in with a chance of winning the league at the end of it. But Fulton, I think, he needs to just take a deep breath and then go for it and see what happens, because sometimes if you don't chance it, it's always the what if situation.
There's a lot of what ifs in racing, but at the end of the day, you got to perform on the track. And yeah, I mean, consistency has 100% been the strength of BJ Fulton this season. They've got that lap traffic once again. He's very close. Last time, he didn't seem brave enough to actually try and go down the inside. This time, he's a little bit closer. He's actually got a little bit of overlap going into it. He's given space down at the apex, and it carries on off of turn 1. Jad Duncan will stay ahead once again. He is proving an incredibly tough customer.
Well, Jad Duncan has been making the back end of that 911 wider than a pickup truck that's been lifted. So he's been doing a stellar job, but BJ Fulton just doing what he can to just keep with him. And this is the point of the race where the tyres are degrading, the fuel is dropping down significantly as these drivers in the GTE class are giving everything. Dylan Scott has just taken another 10th, make that another 2 tenths. The gap now down to 1.4. Dylan Scott, I think, has got that second lease of life, because all these drivers will have those timers on their HUDs telling them how long is left. I think Dylan Scott has decided to unleash the Banshee, so to speak.
And Matt Hollander has taken his last stop a few laps ago and has come back out in the lead easily. Still almost half a minute back to Chris Marciniak down there in P2. So yeah, Hollander's sitting pretty here with a mere 8.5 minutes left to go on the clock. All he has to do is bring it home. We've been staying with this battle a lot because this has been our closest battle for a long time now, and trying to decide who will be on the last step on the podium. Duncan has it, Fulton wants it, but so far he has not been able to pry it out of the hands of the 83.
I think this battle has been going on for at least a good 15, 20 minutes plus, so nearly a third of the race that Duncan and Fulton have been at loggerheads, and John Romeo keeps out of the way. Is this going to be an opportunity for Fulton? Not quite. They are picking up speed. Fulton goes a little bit wider through the sweeper, just to try and carry that extra bit of speed through the corner, and has he's got a better run coming out of the final corner this time. There's no traffic in front, there's no traffic to the side. Fulton to the outside. It's half a tenth as they go into turn 1 at Castrol Corner, and again BJ Fulton. You can try that trick as many times as you like, I'm afraid, but when it does not work, you've got to think of something unusual, something different.
He's definitely going to have to get creative, because yes, he's strong out of that final corner, but it seems like Duncan is just as strong into the first corner. This is BJ Fulton coming off of a win as well. We have to remember last time out at Suzuka. Finally got it He had, I'm going to have to count him up. It was 5 second places this season before he finally got that win. But here's the strange part about that stat, Alex. He's had all those second places. He's never finished in third this season. It's all been just that one win and all the seconds. And if he can get by Duncan, he can tick off that box. Not that I think he's too concerned about the fact that he hasn't stood on third yet.
I mean, 5 second places on the bounce before getting a race win still shows good sign of performance in general. Fulton, he's going to dive to the inside. He's gotten a little bit more creative, but the overspeed was not there. Overspeed was not there for BJ Fulton. And it's just that Duncan just has that presence of mind, just knows that every trick that BJ Fulton has thrown at him so far, Chad Duncan has been able to counter. But Fulton again, he's flirting with the dust on the left-hand side coming out of Rabbit's Ear at turn 2, through into 3, and then up towards the crest of the hill. They've got a back marker just in front, and they've got to be very, very careful. Is this going to compromise Chad Duncan? It is.
That's our leader in GT4 too.
Yeah, could this be the opportunity that BJ Fulton has been waiting for, some back marker traffic? But he wasn't quick to respond there. They went through Monroe Ridge, and I don't know, another sense of hesitation there from BJ Fulton possibly, because that would have been an opportunity. Okay, yeah, he might have gotten a little bit of air underneath the car, but look at the run now. That's it. Right, come on BJ, you've got to go for it this time, and he's pulled alongside early. Now, can he get half the car length in front? No, Duncan is still there. But Fulton tries again, and we've only got 5 minutes on the timer. Rondeau, I think, is at that point where he can consider Dylan Scott to be a little bit further, well, a bit too far away, unless Rondeau has a drama. James Baxter has gone off the circuit ever so briefly, and but yeah, Fulton, there's got to be, there's that air of, that blue air, I would imagine. He's probably saying every curse word under the sun at the moment, and more to the point, you know, it's a case of he's been thinking to himself for those past 20 or so minutes, what on God's green earth do I need to do to get past Chad Duncan here at Big Willow? That's the big question he needs to answer.
If you ask me, I think he needs to be a little bit more aggressive. Every time he gets those opportunities, it doesn't seem like he's really maximizing what's available there, either being more aggressive down into the corner on the inside like we could have here, or just trying to pinch down farther from around the outside. In this case, it'll be neither. He'll stay in line. 3.5 minutes left to go. Where is our leader? Rondeau is up at the top of the hill, so I think we're just looking at about 3 laps left.
Yeah, so we're on lap 68, so we're probably looking at a conclusion at about lap 71. Fulton this time. Oh, now could this be the window of opportunity through turn 3? Well, he placed the car there. Now he, as you said, he's got to try and be creative. If he could do something a bit unusual, something that we haven't seen a lot of. We did see quite a few overtakes going through into turn 3 at the early stage of the race, and we were talking about the track earlier on, Joe, that it was going to be difficult to pass. Now we're seeing it at this point of the race. But meantime, Dylan Scott, look at the interval between him and Mark Rondeau. 3 minutes to go. Scott, I think, might be starting to chip away. He just did a 1:11.251. Rondeau did a 1:11.371. They crossed the line not that long ago. And there's Jeffrey Shulham just in front. So Dylan Scott has started to really pick up the pace. Mark Rondeau is just trying to bring the car home. And as we always know here in motorsport, Joe, that there is that risk versus reward. And BJ Fulton has been close to it, but I think maybe if Dylan Scott gets any closer to Mark Rondeau, the number 11 Hot Wheels car has got to be worried.
Well, I think Shulham's going to be having flashbacks here, because there goes the leader, but here comes Dylan Scott, who wound up coming together with him, and that's what set him back behind Rondeau. Thankfully, this one was a lot cleaner between the pair of them, getting by. No 4 wide situation to have to navigate this time through. But you're right, It is getting ever closer, but from what we've seen with Duncan and Fulton, it's one thing to catch, it's another to pass around here. He's going to have to really be on top of it if he wants to try and get by with only a minute and some change left.
But look, that back marker just hampered Marc Rondeau, and the gap is now halved. So we're about 0.4 of a second. I think this is what Dylan Scott was waiting for maybe that back marker traffic to play its hand. They got past on the 35, Christopher Marciniak, who is now 26 seconds behind Matt Hollander, who is on course to take the GT4 class win. Does Fulton and Duncan. They've got, that's Rob Russell they've just had to go around the outside of. But it's more to the point of, can Dylan Scott do something special here? Because Fulton has thrown everything in the NFL and NHL playbook at Jad Duncan, but nothing has come to fruition. Whereas Scott, I think if he has the window of opportunity, we've got a minute to go. We're about to complete lap number 70 and go on to the white flag lap here at Willow Springs Raceway. That gap, with it being half a second, if Scott can do something about it, he's got to do something about it now. They go past John Mamea into Castrol Corner, and Mamea just keeps it out of the way. 3.5 tenths and closing into Rabbit's Ear. 2.5 tenths. Look at the speed that Dylan Scott is carrying through in comparison with Marc Rondeau. Now let's not forget, Rondeau pitted 2 laps later than Dylan Scott, so Dylan Scott's tyres would have been a lot quicker up to temperature. BJ Fulton again.
Oh, and just as that happened, Scott got by. Scott somehow snuck through. Where in the world did he do that?
That would have been turn 3. That would have been turn 3, I think.
That is an extremely difficult place to pass, but well done. Here we should have just enough time, and it was a mistake. Wow, Rondeau at the last moment made a critical error. Scott did not need a second invitation. This is incredible stuff. Last lap pass, and Dylan Scott will be rewarded with a win here today at Willow Springs in the endurance race. It was tight, though. Less than 0.2 of a second between he and Rondeau for the win.
Okay, out of the final corner, it's going to be a run to the line here for P3. Can Fulton go wheel to wheel, side by side with Duncan? Let's find out. Fulton to the right-hand side. He's going to inch alongside him, but I think Duncan's going to take it by a narrow margin. It's going to be over 0.5 tenth. It's 58 thousandths at the line. Oh. BJ Fulton was a little bit closer. 0.5 tenth, he would have made that. 100%.
Yeah. Too little, too late, for sure. Marciniak, I believe, has he already taken it? Yes, he has taken the checkered flag, so that means it's Hollander officially going to be the winner. We just need to wait for him to come around. Russell as well with an excellent recovery up to third. But this man, Matt Hollander, got sneaky with the caution, ducked into pit lane, got himself a little bit of extra fuel. Yes, he had to wait for a penalty, but that didn't do anything to him in the end, as he was able to catch back up to the tail end of the field before the yellow ended. And that will net him a win in the GT4s. Matt Hollander taking victory in the GT2 class.
I think it was Dylan Scott, you know, trying to put that pressure on Marc Rondeau, and you saw that Jad Duncan soaked up that pressure like a sponge against BJ Fulton. But it was just, it was all about timing, and Marc Rondeau just making that unforced error, coming out of Rabbit's Ear into turn 3, walloped the curb with the left side tyres. It put him wide. Dylan Scott went, right, here's my chance, floored it, a little bit of contact on the way out, but still got the job done.
And that is what gave him the win. As we go through the results, the GTE car sees Scott with the overall win over Rondeau, less than 0.2 of a second after 90 minutes of racing between the pair of them. Jad Duncan will round out the podium. He was even closer with just about 0.06 of a second, separating himself from BJ Fulton, who pressurized him but couldn't make him crack. Fulton will come away with a 4th. Thomas Isabel has to settle for P5 today. An early spin kind of set the tone for his race. Dustin Heindel with a P6, last driver on the lead lap, and Jeffrey Shulam in 7th, with Daniel Viverco in 8th, Leclerc 9th, and Baxter was a DNF today. What about our GT4 class results here, Alex?
Well, Matt Hollander winning ahead of Christopher Marciniak by just over 23 seconds at the flag. Further 20 seconds back was the number 18 of Rob Russell, who did have the lead at one point, but did also hit trouble. Adam Abrams, well, it could have been a little bit higher than 4th position for the 704, but he also had his fair share of dramas. Michael Tercy dropped down towards the back end of the field early in the race, finished P5. John Mamea rounding out 6th ahead of Federico Del Toro, who unfortunately disconnected, and his race ended on lap 50 with Jim Garimani and Larry Haza rounding out the 9 drivers, with the latter 2 also not finishing.
Looks like we've got Dylan Scott ready to talk to us, taking a spectacular win, making the pass on the last lap. Dylan, has the adrenaline come down yet?
The surprise, the shock. Yeah, Mark and I were just chatting in the lobby, and he had that race. That was his. Mark in real life IRL is Mr. Willow Springs, so him and I did some practices during the week. He's always going to be right there on it. He did a fantastic job tonight with strategy, but yeah, him and I he had the same thought coming into turn 3 there, baby the brakes, don't do anything silly, 1 lap to go or half a lap to go, and he just hit that inside curb, and I was lucky not to collect him on the way through. I couldn't stop, but in the end, put it to the front. I'm pretty happy about that, especially on a double points night, for sure.
Speaking of being lucky, you had a little bit of contact with a 4 wide moment, and you had a second touch there with Jeffrey Shulam. Now, we weren't sure if there was any damage, but we couldn't see any. Did it do anything to the car?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of traffic. I thought they knew I was coming up in the inside. Obviously, was trying to head to the front of the pack. That's unfortunate. Jeff's another good buddy, so apologies to Jeff. But yeah, there's so much traffic. I thought they would see, we had it was at a pace where it was sort of easy to make that inside. So I thought, great, I'll just go down the right-hand side. But then I'm sure there was cars on the outside pushing Jeff over, and we ran out of room, unfortunately. So sorry to Jeff.
Oh, a huge congratulations. Who helped put you on the top step tonight?
Nobody. Myself. No, shout out to my kids, Nico, Luca, Aurora. Love you guys. Yeah, just doing it for fun. Old guy out here racing with the young guys.
Dylan Scott, your winner in the GTE class cars. And I believe we have the other side of the coin, as Alex has caught up with Mark Rondeau, who finished P2.
Mark, what can we say? A great battle towards the end. I said sort of early on in the race that you were going to be a bit of a dark horse, and it was just so close. That slight mistake going into T3 on the final lap. Just talk us through how hard you had worked to get up to that point, and Dylan was putting the pressure on, close the gap.
Yeah, Dylan had incredible pace. Actually, I shouldn't have been up there. I didn't have that pace. I just know this track really well, and I know what the tire wear is like. And it was just pit strategy and trying to maintain my tires. And unfortunately, I tried to baby turn 3 a little on the brakes, and it just stepped out a little on me and screwed me up. But I only took 1 tire. I only took 1 tire on the second pit, no tires on the first pit stop. So just a front left, and it worked pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, you started on the outside of row 3 in the 6th position, and you managed to get ahead of people that had out-qualified you. I mean, it's a very different thing of doing a 40-minute sprint, but then doing a 90-minute enduro, you've got to look at the bigger picture, haven't you?
Oh yeah. The yellow didn't hurt. I was still pacing with those guys. It kind of brought everyone together, but I was just going to let them run away if they wanted to. I just wanted to, stay in the 111s and not beat up my tires. And I was able to wait a little longer to get fuel, so that helped as well.
Well, all we can say is well done tonight, starting 6th, finishing in 2nd. Anyone you'd like to give a shout out to who you got here for tonight?
as always, GSRC, you guys do an incredible job. The POC, fun to race at our home track. My parents who are always watching, and my girlfriend Alicia and my son Leiden. Thanks, guys.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you very much, Mark Rondo, our runner-up in the GTE class. And I think you're standing by, I think, possibly with our GT4 winner, Matt Hollander, Mr. Peak.
Indeed, I am, Matt. Pulling out a bit of strategy on this one, taking a pit stop during the yellow. You had that black flag. Was there panic in there that you were going to go a lap down there, Matt?
I was a little nervous, but knowing that the pace car was out, it kind of helped. I hit the pit speed limiter, but I guess I passed the guy in front of me there just a little bit, so it gave me the penalty. But I knew I was going to be starting in the back regardless, so it all worked out.
It did indeed. So it gets to later in the race. You're very close with Federico Del Toro. How confident were you in that call that you would wind up in the lead when all was said and done?
Well, I knew I had taken, during that pit stop, I did a left front tire. I think it was on my second pit, just because I was starting to really not be able to come around turn 2 with any speed. So changed just the left front and was seeing lap by lap, it was half a second that I was gaining on Federico. And unfortunately, John kind of got in the middle of that little battle there. And earlier in the race, coming around 3, he had let me go on the inside there. And, apologies to John for the little bump there. But, trying to get around lap traffic and stay in the battle was kind of what was the mindset there.
Well, it was a brilliant plan, perfectly executed. It gave you the win. Anybody you want to thank?
Of course, want to thank the POC. Thanks to you guys for doing this, and looking forward to using this endurance skill later in the year. I'm heading out to Spa in October for the 24-hour race. So this was a good little stint to get prepared for that.
Well, that'll be fantastic. I'm very jealous, and again, congratulations.
Thank you.
Matt Hollander with some very cool plans for later this year, apparently. The man who finished behind him definitely wasn't as close here in the GT4s, Alex, but still a nice P2 for Marciniak.
Yep, Christopher Marciniak joins us. Christopher, second place, having qualified 4th in the GT4s. In this kind of race, it's a little bit about keeping your nose clean and making sure you cross the T's, dot the I's. How do you feel after taking that second spot in this race tonight?
Feels good, guys. It's certainly, I knew it was going to be, because it's the endurance and a little longer format. It was all about getting in the headspace of settling in to the comfy chair and turning laps. So definitely championship needed this, so I'm stoked. Sucks that Federico had some internet issues. That's a bummer. But we were keeping up with him and just turning laps. It was great.
How was the tire wear on your Porsche 718 Cayman?
So I was I looked, and I didn't take tires the first lap, first pit stop, and then I peeked over and saw that the front tires were still around 80%. So I just decided I had a pretty good gap at that point to third place or fourth place, and so I had a pretty good gap, and so I just went with fuel and went out and kept sitting consistent times. But the last 3 laps, my front left was pretty wiped.
That's pretty good to hear, and also seeing those GTEs go flying past at a big rate of speed, that keeps you on your toes, doesn't it?
Yeah, I definitely got a lot of experience tonight. I have to try not to let them sort of take 1 or 2 seconds when they catch up to me, and kind of stay on it, and communicate and let them go, but at the same time keep up the pace.
Well done on the second place tonight, Christopher. Anyone you'd like to thank before we let you go?
I'd like to thank my wife Christine for the support, but thanks so much.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Christopher. And Mr. Peak, that rounds out our post-race interview show here on GSRC.
It does indeed. And before we go, we want to give another thank you to our sponsors, Porsche. There is no substitute. Find out more at Porsche.com, and Top Gun MG, helping financial advisors be the best of the best. You can find them at TopGunMG.com. Thanks to our team today, Alex, Christian, and Dougie. Make sure to check out our social media, our website, and our merchandise store. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel as well so you don't miss a moment. Next time, we're going back across the pond. It's over to Barcelona. That'll be Monday, June 2nd at 10 p.m. Eastern. Up next later this week, though, Grand Prix legends are heading to Motegi. So be sure to check out that as well as other broadcasts that we have listed here. And until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.